Stomsky along with Harry Rock here for another episode of Discover Westfield.
And what an exciting opportunity we have. I am really looking forward to our visit today, Kenny.
Yes. Before we get to our visit, let's quickly, once again, briefly, talk about exactly what Discover Westfield is trying to accomplish.
So this is a great opportunity for the business community of Westfield to really showcase yourself. If you've got a established business, or even if it's a virtual business, if there is something that you would like to share with the community of Westfield, get in touch with us. Kenny will go over that in just a moment, but we'll come in with our cameras. We need about an hour of your time, and we'll tell the story behind your business, how you got started, what you have to offer, and how you're dealing with the COVID crisis going forward.
As we've been doing with everyone we visited thus far. So now, for this episode, we are going to Horizons Bikes.
New Horizons
Bikes.
That's right.
Yes.
They're located on Franklin Street. I think probably everybody knows exactly where they are.
Kind of where Washington Street comes up to it.
Yep, that intersection of, exactly right. Yeah. And it's going to be a great opportunity just to find out about bicycles and fitness and family activities. You know, with COVID right now, families are really struggling with what to do with different age groups. You've got young kids and older children, adults. Cycling is a phenomenal outlet. We've got the great bike trail here in town. So New Horizons bikes have been here for a long time. We're going to learn more about them, and we'll be able to share what you can get involved in.
I have a feeling this is going to be a favorite one of yours.
It is, because I'm an avid cyclist, so I'm looking forward to it.
All right, let's get over there.
All right. Welcome to Discover Westfield with Ken and Harry. I'm Harry Rock, and Kenny Stomsky is the voice that you'll be hearing behind the camera. Today we're visiting with New Horizon Bikes located at 55 Franklin Street here in Westfield. My guest is Don Podolsky, who's president of the company, with his daughter Mary, who is the shop manager. So Don, Kenny and I are thrilled to be here to learn more about New Horizons. You're kind of an institution here in Westfield. It would be hard for me probably to find anyone who lives in Westfield that didn't know that the bike shop was here on Franklin Street and has been here for a long time. But I'm just curious to how long has the shop been here?
Well, actually, I've been on Franklin Street since '84. I started the shop in '83, originally in Southwick for that first year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then came here to Westfield, bought the building in '84.
Right in the same location?
Yeah, actually, I was in the building next door for the first 5 years, 6 years,
okay.
And then moved over here.
Wow. Now, are you from Westfield originally?
Yeah, originally from Westfield.
You grew up here?
Grew up here.
Wow. And so what got you interested in a bike business? Had you always been a cyclist yourself? Or
yeah, actually, I started working on bikes back in high school. And even before that, you know, as I had bikes, my dad was the night supervisor at Columbia. So,
is that right?
Yeah, so, you know, kind of a family tie to bikes that got me interested in it.
Sure.
You know, so I started toying with bikes. I would typically get a new bike every couple years from my dad, and probably destroy it before the next one came along, and then, you know, got involved with it. I think back in, you know, it had to be probably in the mid '60s. I attended the Raleigh Service School. I don't know, maybe I was 15 or 16.
Wow.
For a weekend out in Boston to learn how to, at the time, tear apart a Sturmey Archer 3-speed hub and rebuild it.
Oh, yeah, sure, I remember
because that's
those.
the
Right.
type of bike that most people were utilizing at that time. The 10-speed hadn't really come into fashion at that point in time.
Right.
And then just stuck with it. Got involved with a couple of friends of mine. In fact, one of them, if you remember, our Mayor Palczynski, his son was one of the riders. There were 4 of us that formed a cycling club and trained together and went to races together in the late '60s and early '70s.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you were racing?
Oh yeah, road racing.
Wow.
Yeah. Then I started promoting races, low-key stuff.
I know. I've been following the Tour de France is going on right now, so
Yep.
I've been watching that every day, and really fascinating, and just almost shocked to see the level of athleticism and what they're able to do in these incredible climbs.
Sure.
The distances they're riding and the inclines are just amazing what they're going up. It's funny you talk about the 10-speed. So I've always. Kenny and I are going around town doing a lot of these little interviews, and this one was of particular interest to me because, as you well know, I'm an avid cyclist myself. I've ridden in your own rides here, the Westfield River ride, a number of years, up until I had my hip replaced, and that kind of slowed me down quite a bit. But I can recall as a kid, I always had, I think it was probably a Columbia bike. That I would be tooling around. I remember getting it at a young age. It was almost, the frame was too big. I couldn't even get on the thing. I'd walk it down. I'd try to get my leg on. And I was always trying to find a hill, but what I didn't realize is that the bike went up the hill with me. So as I went up the hill, I'm trying to get on. I could never get on it. And then my dad bought me a Schwinn 10-speed when I was probably a freshman in high school or something. And that bike, wow. And so I really got interested. I never raced, but I was always interested in long distance rides, and it was just my salvation. I just loved going off on long rides, and I still do today. So it's phenomenal. So let's just talk about the growth of the shop. What did you have for bikes back in '84? And I'm guessing in '84 it was a small market share.
Well, it was and it wasn't. Back when I opened, what I saw was that. The one thing that was lacking was mountain bikes were just starting to take off.
Okay.
And a lot of shops were ignoring them because they thought it was a fad. And the other category that was getting ignored was custom builds, European frame sets, and then built to spec, the way you wanted it, not
Right.
the way the manufacturer said,
Sure.
you're going to get this level of components, all right? So that's what we featured, and it worked. And then as we went along, we've evolved over time. Right now, I would say that our strongest sales category are the bikes that you would use on the bike trail. So not the drop bar racing bike, but more upright bikes, wider tires. And then we also have a really strong kids business. So,
is that right?
Oh, yeah. Well, back, I can't remember how far back it was, we started offering a guaranteed trade-in program on our kids' bikes. So we always felt that one of the key things, like you mentioned, having a bike that was too big when you were growing up, that you really wanted to have a bike properly sized for everyone, not just adults, but children. But a good quality bike is expensive. So with the guaranteed trade-in, we were guaranteeing over a 4-year time period, half back towards the next size. Buy the correct size, 2 to 3 years, child outgrows it, turn it back in towards the next size, all the way up until you get to the adult wheel size. That's worked for us so that our kids' bikes are, again, one of our strongest categories, where some shops totally ignore the kids' bikes.
Don kind of brought up a memory just a moment ago, because in the 80s, as a youth, I had to have a mountain bike.
Right.
And then after a month dealing with the big knobby tires on pavement, the first thing I did was I changed the tires on that thing. And then, lo and behold, now I see, 10, 15 years after that, the hybrid bikes start to come up, and they're actually on the showroom now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got a child's bike right next to you.
Oh, yeah,
here.
and you've got some right over there.
I'm curious, what's the price point on these for parents? If
Well,
you were to buy
our
one?
kids' bikes typically are ranging from right around the $300 level and up. One of the brands we feature is from the United Kingdom, Wales actually, called Frog. And it's a company that only makes kids' bikes. They make no adult bikes at all.
Is that right?
But what they do is they design the bike based on the kid's physique or body. So what we have is a crank set where we call it a Q factor, which basically is how far out the pedals are on a crank. So on the Frog bikes, they're in much closer than they are on other brands of kids' bikes. So basically, the kids are pedaling with their feet under their hips, not with their legs splayed out from their hips. The handlebars on these bikes are generally about saddle level, where other brands of kids' bikes bring the handlebars up like a BMX style bike, really high, which makes the steering kind of erratic and squirrely, gives it a cool look. Again, they're styled like an adult bike, scaled down to the kids. They're also typically about 6 to 12 pounds lighter than the average kid's bike. So you figure a child, weight-wise, it's crazy to have them on a bike that might weigh as much as they do. I mean, can you imagine if you were riding well, I won't say exactly how much, but well over a 100-pound bike, which is what most kids are getting stuck with. They're getting stuck with a bike that's equal to their weight.
Oh my gosh, right.
Here we have a bike that might be 1/2 of what they weigh typically, or less than a half.
Right. Yeah, no, that's an important factor. I think about my bike is probably like 15 or 16 pounds
right.
Compared to my weight. So it's really interesting, and I'm going to get into the different styles of bikes in a minute, but let's just talk about, we're living in the COVID era right now, and what was business like? And you've always had a very steady business, both for bikes and parts and repairs, but what was business like pre-COVID, and then what happened in COVID?
Well, it's kind of interesting. Basically, our business is very slow in the winter. We do virtually nothing in January and February. So we kick off really right around the middle of March.
People starting to think in spring.
Start to spring, and then sales skyrocket, and they're strong. Okay. So likewise, you mentioned the events. Our events begin St. Patrick's Day. For years, we've run a 60-mile ride called the St. Patrick's 100K on St. Patrick's weekend. We actually held that ride this year on March 14th. Which was our last day.
Oh my God! Because the 16th is when the world shut down.
Right, and the 15th was a Sunday, so we're
right.
So anyhow,
oh my God, that's so funny.
We had the riders. We had already started precautions. We wouldn't allow any sign-ups in the shop. Nobody could come into the building. Everyone had to register for the ride online, download a release form, bring a signed release form to drop off. We had already gone that route. And then we were closed up. And Massachusetts initially did not consider bicycle shops as essential business. So we were closed for about 3 weeks. And before the state suddenly decided that bicycle repair, like auto repair, was essential, primarily because of the number of commuters in the eastern part of the state that were relying on some place to go and get flat tires fixed and parts for their bikes. So we reopened then. Basically, at that time, we instituted a free pickup and delivery of repairs in the greater Westfield area, all the towns surrounding us. Oh, yeah. All our repairs and parts purchases were being done on online reservation by appointment. And suddenly, by probably the third week in April, with everyone realizing, wow, the bike shop is open, the weather's nice, we started to get flooded with the repairs and also with sales. We were fortunate. Several of the companies we deal with had no inventory because the factories that make inexpensive bikes, and when I say inexpensive, we're really dealing with bikes under $1,000. Those factories closed back in December because of COVID.
Oh, wow.
And they were closed right through March. And when they reopened, even in April, they were only at maybe 1/3 capacity.
Oh, wow.
So even companies that wanted to produce bikes couldn't produce them because the parts weren't being made. Fortunately, one of our vendors was really good in terms of supplying us on a regular basis with bikes. It was kind of hit or miss. Like one week we might have all hybrids, and then the next delivery would be all $600-700 mountain bikes, and the next delivery would be something else. So it was never like, this is the bike you want. We've got it. You might have to wait a few weeks.
Here's the bike we have.
Right. So as a result, we essentially saw business pretty much double gradually over the summer, which made up for that almost 1 month early season that we lost because of it, and then has continued, although it is kind of a nightmare. We have to, I say we, Mary, the shop manager, has to go online usually right after she gets up at 6 a.m. or so to search out parts from our vendors to see what's available. Same thing at the end of the day in the evening, has to go online and do it. Our website permits online ordering, so we're getting bike sales every day when we come in the morning that we have bikes sold already.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. And during this, Mary could give you more information on this. I think she probably knows the farthest that anyone's traveled for a bike. But we've had bike sales from people from New Jersey that are driven up to get the bike, Westchester,
Really?
Syracuse.
Because they couldn't get bikes locally.
Couldn't get the bike they wanted locally, and it was on our website, called up and reserved it and drove out here to get it, because shipping is ridiculously expensive on a bike. Plus, you're getting it in a box, and it has to be assembled.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That is really, really interesting. It's very interesting how through this COVID thing, certain businesses have been decimated. The restaurant business has really been hurting. Bars aren't even existing right now. Retail, so many businesses have been hit so hard. Yet other businesses, because of COVID, have thrived, and the outdoor industry has just blossomed.
Right.
Quite frankly, RV sales. You read and hear on the paper that you can't find a bike in a bike shop. Although I see a lot of bikes in here, and I do see a lot of parts. But still, you were telling me, how many bikes did you used to sell per year, and how many have you sold this year in just a matter of months?
Well, we pretty much doubled sales, from the 300 some odd bike level to about 600 bikes.
That is amazing.
Yeah. And the other thing that's interesting, because, for starters, back in April, when we reopened, Mary has 2 kids, my grandkids, 5 and 7. Okay. So remote learning had taken effect already.
Oh, right.
We couldn't be open until the end of the school day. So our hours shifted from a regular 9 a.m. to 5:30 to a 3 to 7 operation and Saturday. Yeah. And we're continuing with that, and I don't know how, what we'll do, because we're back into the remote learning again.
Yeah. Right.
So, as you know, I'm maybe as old as you.
I think we're pretty close.
I might even be older. So I don't have really any contact with anyone in the shop. I'm in early in the morning to start building and doing repairs, and I don't do any sales anymore. The shop opens, I leave and go home. I'm done for the day.
Right.
So there's really no way for the shop with remote learning to operate on any regular schedule.
Even that has impacted your ability to provide normal, quote unquote, normal hours.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
So you've had to adjust.
Can't be done.
Wow, that's really interesting. Do you think that certainly hiking, fishing, biking, camping, RVing, all these outdoor pursuits have really just exploded. Do you think it will just be a bubble until COVID is over? Do you think there will be a renewed interest in outdoor sports and activities for families over the long term because of this?
My feeling is that you're going to see a pretty sizable percentage of people that have started doing this continuing it.
Right.
I mean, there'll be those that drop away from it, but I think there'll be a sizable number. The one thing that we really have trouble figuring out is that the numbers that have actually bought a lower quality bike, a department store grade bike, an online bike that just isn't working right or riding well. A lot of those probably will drop out of riding because of the difficulty in riding it, the fact that no one has given them guidance on how to actually use it, how to shift and everything. But a certain percentage of those will probably decide it's pretty cool, I got to upgrade and get a better bike. So I think we're going to continue with some pretty sizable sales going down the road.
Yeah.
And we've also seen this big upswing in e-bikes.
So what is an e-bike?
So an e-bike is a bike with a motor. but it's not a moped. It's an assist motor.
Okay.
So most, and primarily the e-bikes that we sell and most bike shops sell, don't have throttles. In other words, that bike can't move by itself.
Okay.
You have to pedal it. The motor simply is reducing the amount of effort you need to put in. The best analogy I can come up with is that an e-bike takes a hill and makes it flat.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of people, especially if they are later in life cyclists, riding hills is a barrier. You know, my wife alone, she only wants to ride the bike trail because it's flat. She doesn't want to do hills. So this really introduces them and allows them to ride different types of terrain and
Sure.
expand their...
Lets you ride farther with the same amount of effort. Lets you ride more difficult terrain with the same effort that flat ground riding would give you. You know, some of our riders, because we do road style bikes, drop bar race style bikes that have electric motors. And some of these riders have for years ridden with clubs in the area or groups of friends. And they've reached a point now where, again, they're older. And I'm sure you feel the way I do.
It's tough.
Going up a hill is slow going.
Right.
So they found themselves, everybody within their group, the younger riders, would have to wait for them on every hill. Once they got onto an e-bike, they had to wait for the younger riders on the hill.
Oh, that's funny.
So it's really the great equalizer for age or physical ability for riders that, again, someone that overweight wants to weight loss. An e-bike will actually help them do that because they'll be able to ride or be out there longer than they would on a regular bike and get more of a benefit out of it.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. So I'm fascinated to see, and I've learned a lot already. You certainly have a full array of children's bikes here. I see Frog and Norco, little bikes, mid-sized bikes probably for like 10 or 12-year-olds, and then certainly getting into adult bikes. So how many you've got certainly mostly what I see road bikes, you know, with the dropped handlebars, and then I see the regular straight bar bikes. So talk about the different styles of bikes that are in here and what can people expect and what should people be thinking about buying and how do they, because sometimes you come in here and it's like overwhelming. Oh my gosh, look at all these bikes, and I have no idea what to spend or what style to get, and there's drop bar versus flat bar. What should be people thinking about?
Well, the first thing really is intended use. Where do they plan on riding? Are they going to primarily ride the bike trail? Are they going to, ride the road and do charity rides or longer distance rides? Or are they going to be, riding off-road dirt trails? And the final one would be, are they going to travel up to Thunder Mountain, ride the chairlift, and bomb down the mountain? Each of those categories really is a different bike. And the bike from one doesn't necessarily work as well in the other. So it's like, are you going to have 80% of your riding on the bike trail? Why not get the bike that works the best for that? Is the bulk of your riding going to be, that fast workout, that road performance workout? Go with that bike. The next step really is budget. How much bike do you need? If you're going to ride Saturday and Sunday, 50 miles each day, and do 4,000 miles a year, you're not going to be happy on the bottom line of bikes. You need to be up in the middle or above. So those are really the first two factors in determining it, and then we get involved with fit. Measuring and determine what size bike. A good quality bike, particularly say a road bike, most of those are available in 8 different sizes to cover riders from right about 5 feet tall to 6'3". So getting that bike based on leg length and torso length is really critical, and we utilize a measuring system to determine it, which also permits us to determine proper size of the bike in the COVID period when we might not even have this bike here and not be seeing it for a couple of months.
Right. So let's talk price ranges, because you've talked about low-end bikes, high-end bikes. My philosophy, and I've always put my money in my toys, so to speak, whether it's canoes or bikes or skis. my philosophy was always, spend as much as you can afford, because you'll grow into the bike and you'll enjoy the performance, but not everybody can do that. And so there's entry level, there's kind of mid-grade, and then there's the high end. So kind of talk about the price breaks and what people can expect. What do children's bikes sell for? What entry level adult bikes sell for? And then, just moving up the ranks.
Okay. And again, the price ranges will vary with the categories. But basically, we'll start with a local bike trail. For someone riding the trail, the range essentially is right about the mid $300 range on up to pretty much a max of maybe $800-900 on those bikes. The average is going to be that $400 to $500 bike, which is going to give good performance and be a durable bike that's going to go many years without any major service. Okay. On the other hand, that rider that wants to do those charity rides, wants to do the Pan Mass Challenge and rides the Ride to Remember in that, they're going to ride pretty much a road bike, a drop bar bike like you use. Typically those bikes are starting in around $600 at the entry level and going up into the multiple thousands, with the average bike being around $1,500 to $2,500 in that category. So it's a more expensive bike. The mountain bikes, same thing. Casual, what we call sport level mountain bike riders, $450 to $600, a really good bike. The rider that wants to go to Thunder Mountain, ride the lift and bond down the mountain, he's got to start thinking in a couple $1,000s and up.
Really?
Oh, yeah. He'll destroy that basic bike in no time.
Wow.
So usage really kind of determines the price range of the bike, the intended usage, and the style of bike that's being purchased. The kids' bikes, well, models in that mid $200 range, the more higher or better performance, lighter weight kids' bikes are typically in that $350 to $500 range.
One of the things, talking about kids for a second, I'm more of a roadie. I tend to ride the roads because I'm always looking for the hills, and I enjoy that kind of a workout. My wife is a flat rider, so she likes the bike trail. We're fortunate to have a phenomenal, and I know that you're still a part of the Friends of the Greenway.
Of the Columbia Greenway.
Columbia Greenway. You've been a driver in helping get the bike trail to Westfield, and I think helping to finish off this last piece. I think there's 7 bridges. 7 bridges? Do I have that right?
Well, 5.
Five
five
bridges
they're
that we
doing
got
now.
to get finished off. But the bike trail is phenomenal, both going south or north. So when I can get Ann out, it's on the bike trail. So I'll ride the bike trail. But what I've noticed about the bike trail is I love the fact that there's so many families out and young children. Now I have to be careful navigating because they're all over the place, and so you've just got to be careful passing them. But I have seen more families out with children riding, and what I love about that is it's a quality life experience for a family, because especially in COVID, they can't go to the movies together. There aren't a lot of things that families can do together with the wide range of ages of children and adults. Cycling, they can all do together.
Harry, you talk about that bike path. Once they finish that downtown segment, it's elevated. You don't have to worry about crossing streets.
Exactly.
All right, there are a ton of bridges there. Originally, when it was a railroad, they elevated it so that the trains can run basically down to H.B. Smith and not interfere with any of the traffic in town.
Right.
This is one of the only bike paths in the country that are elevated like that.
Yeah, I know. It's really so. Just talk about. Have you seen an uptick in? And Kenny brings up a great point about being elevated. Mm-hmm. But I'll talk about the bike trail in a second. But have you seen more family activity than you had in the past, or has that been consistent?
Oh no, definitely more family activity. Usage is up phenomenal. Pretty much doubled this year from what it was last year. The Friends Group maintains several counters, automatic counters on the trail.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah. So we're constantly, every month, doing up a report and reporting our data to the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, and also to a group down in Connecticut, in comparisons of trail usage. So we know how many people are out there, what times of day they're out there. What we don't know is, how many are runners, how many are cyclists. We just know how many bodies have passed the counter.
Right.
But we also do physical counts several times a year, which gives us, again, a benchmark, so we know the proportion of cyclists relative to walkers and joggers and rollerbladers and skateboarders and dog walkers.
Right.
And all those things.
But to Kenny's point, and Kenny, I'm glad you mentioned the fact that it's elevated, because that's one of the factors I love about it. When you ride, I call it the new section, from Stop and Shop, especially just out to Shaker Road, that piece being elevated, you're looking out on the tobacco fields behind Columbia, you're looking at the hills to the west, you're looking at downtown Westfield. Being up like that is just absolutely amazing. It's a whole different perspective. And to Kenny's point, you're away from the traffic. You don't have to worry about a safety standpoint.
Right.
But it is so scenic, and we're very fortunate as a community to have what we have. And I personally am very excited to see the conclusion of this next piece, as it'll tie into the renovated railroad bridge.
Yeah,
I've
ridden the Neurotic Trail up in Hampshire County. It's night and day.
Right. Yeah, when you do those trails, you're at grade level, and you're having to make a lot of road crossings and stuff.
Exactly.
And so it's tough. Even at Cape Cod, we were down there 2 summers ago. I can't tell you how many close calls I personally had trying to cross, because traffic gets impatient.
Exactly, yeah.
Because there's so many tourists coming down and so many people riding the bike trails down there, and there's so many road crossings. They're just trying to get through. Oh my gosh, there's another biker, and they're just trying to get. I quite frankly, I thought about how many really close calls where I could touch the car that was going right by me, or the truck or something, and
Sure.
it's kind of scary from that standpoint. So let's talk a little bit about in bikes. A lot of people that are starting to say, I don't know how you ride those little skinny seats. I want a big fluffy seat with a lot of gel on it, or I don't want those things where you have to clip in, or those traps where you have to put your feet in, those clips you have to put your feet into. I want flat. Can you just talk about some of the worries that people have about seats and pedals, and it's not an issue, and then the size of the seat is smaller the better, quite frankly, in a lot of cases.
Well, basically, as far as seats go, position on the bike. If you have a bike that is designed where you're sitting very upright, okay, in other words, your back isn't bent over, you're sitting straight up pretty much, you need a wide, cushy saddle, because you're putting more weight on the seat. On the other hand, the road or racing style bike you're familiar with, where your back is bent at perhaps about a 30, maybe even a 45-degree angle, if the saddle height is set correctly and the reach is correct for your body proportions, you distributed your weight evenly at 3 points: hands, saddle, and feet. And for distance riding, you don't want a saddle that is so wide that it's going to rub on the inside of your thigh and chafe you. So the narrow saddle with a minimal amount of padding is going to work the best on that type of bike. So it's basically, again, how you're positioned on the bike and whether that bike saddle height is set correctly for you on that. As far as pedals go, well, again, that clip-in style of pedal is giving you added power, particularly uphill. So you typically find that you're able to ride a bike a couple gears higher or a bit faster if you're clipped into that pedal. There's no chance of slipping off or anything. As far as riding like on a bike trail or more casual riding, really a basic sneaker and flat pedal is all you need.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, interesting. So not to be scared off, but when people come in, you're going to guide them in the right direction.
Exactly. Again, usage really determines that style.
Right.
And then fit becomes important beyond that. And I think I mentioned before, we've seen this big change in tire widths over the last couple of years, where bikes have much wider tires now than they did just a few years ago. So those tires actually act like a suspension on the bikes and increase the comfort of it. Again, air volume is really giving you some suspension.
I know we were talking before we started the interview about the fact that I come out of the old school, which is go with the skinniest tires possible and blow them up is so hard that you can't even press them in, like 110, 120 pounds per square inch. And you're saying, nope, that school that is no longer the case at wider and softer pressures.
Exactly, yes.
Which is interesting.
So I ride a gravel bike, what we call a gravel bike, which is like a race bike, road bike, but it's designed, I like to call them the Swiss Army knife of bicycles. Ride it on pavement, ride it on dirt roads, gravel roads. In fact, my favorite is the East River Trail out at Nightville, to ride through there on this bike. I run 45 PSI in my tires, 45 pounds of pressure.
Wow.
I'm 178 pounds.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and that bike rides sweet on the bike trail because all the root damage down in Southwick and into Connecticut.
Right.
It just rolls right over those without jarring me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Can you talk a little bit about the rules of the road? Because there's a lot of confusion out there with people, certainly people that don't ride bikes that think, bikes should only be on sidewalks, or why aren't bikes going towards me, or what are the rules of the road for bicyclists when they're on the road?
Sure. Simplest way to look at it is that all the rules that apply to you as a driver of a car apply to you as a driver of a bicycle. In other words, you're riding with traffic. You're obeying stop signs and traffic lights. You should be signaling your intent when you're making turns so that traffic behind you knows where you're going. And you want to avoid obstacles. So we like to say you really don't want to ride in the gutter. You need to be riding several feet out away from the curb. So you're avoiding the broken pavement near storm drains and road litter. On country roads and in an urban setting like downtown Westfield, you'd be riding in the middle of the lane. You're more visible there, and typically you're riding pretty close to the speed traffic would be going through downtown Westfield anyways. The sidewalk riding, as you mentioned it, there is a state law that prohibits sidewalk riding within a business district.
Oh, is that right? Which
in the case of Westfield starts down on Broad Street. When you come into town, you'll see a sign labeled Business District. Extends to over the river, out on along Main Street and part of Franklin Street. That's a statewide law, and it's intended to protect pedestrians exiting buildings, because in downtown situations, most doors are right at the sidewalk. They're not set back. All right?
Oh, right.
So a bike would run into somebody or close to it in those situations. Now, Westfield also is kind of unique amongst communities here in Westfield, Mass. There is a local ordinance that's been on the books, I think, since the 70s that prohibits bicycle riding on all sidewalks.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, for years I've kind of lobbied council members to try and change this. That, there are areas within the community where it makes sense to ride the bike on the sidewalk. And it's kind of crazy to have this law specifically like that. Other towns like East Hampton actually label the sections of town outside of the business district where they also don't allow bicycle riding, but it's not a universal city or town-wide ordinance like it is here.
That just sparked a question for me, because as anybody who lives in Westfield, if you're going down Western Avenue, that's been going a year, 2-year renovation of that entire roadway.
Sure.
And the thing I have noticed is they have put new sidewalks in from the university heading towards Highland School. Very wide. They're almost like a road in themselves, double the width, I think,
Sure.
or at least a width and a half. Amazingly wide sidewalks. Are those for bikes?
Sure.
Is that
those
the
are
intent to
actually
get them off the road? Or?
Those actually are considered by the town, the city, and the state to be multi-use paths.
Okay.
So they're not really sidewalks.
Okay.
They're designed for bikes and pedestrians and everything. That's the north side.
Right.
South side is a sidewalk 5 feet wide.
Okay.
The north side is the path. You'll also notice that the shoulders, particularly where the shoulder crosses streets entering, is marked as if it's a bike lane as well. Once school is in session, college, you're probably going to find mid-afternoon so much pedestrian traffic between the Woodward Center and the campus that riding a bike, like you mentioned, the bike trail, it's like negotiating everything, that it's going to be more convenient to be out in the road on those times of day than it is at other times. But likewise, evenings, dusk, rainy days and that, probably far safer to be on the multi-use path than to be out there on the road with the amount of traffic that's going to be there.
Yeah, interesting. Let's talk a little bit about safety. Helmets, what you see now are lights on bikes far more than we used to. Just a little bit about what people should be considering. And,
sure.
And, most people seem to wear helmets, but not everybody. What's your take on that?
So I look at a helmet as being your seatbelt on the bike. I mean, hopefully you never have a need for it, but if something happens, you want to be wearing it.
Right.
Okay. There is a state law for kids 16 and under that they're required to wear a helmet. But adults or anyone over 16, it's not a requirement. It's something that's up to you. But it's a wise choice to be wearing them. As far as lights go, I think one of the best innovations that has occurred in the past few years are daytime running lights for bicycles. So much like new cars where your lights are on all the time, there are rechargeable lighting systems that are extremely bright. It can be set in a flashing mode. White light front, red light rear, that make you far more visible in the daytime than you would be without that light. Okay, and they're inexpensive. I mean, a basic rechargeable light combination is about $30. It's not a very expensive combination in there. There's also for those riders that longer distance and commuting in that. Of generator systems where we actually can build a wheel with a generator within the hub to power a lighting system, so you never have to recharge or put batteries in or anything.
So it's in the hub.
Yeah.
I remember the old style generator that would run against the side of the tire.
Sure.
You just sparked that memory.
Yeah. The old bottle generator, we called it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating.
So, I mean, those changes, have come about in lighting systems, so they really make a lot of sense. And even nowadays the braking systems on bikes, most of the bikes we sell have disc brakes, not rim brakes. So much like a car or a motorcycle, you've got a much more powerful braking system with the disc rotor at the hub being your braking surface, and at a certain price point, that system is fully hydraulic, just like in a car or motorcycle, far more powerful, and an all-weather braking system for the bike.
You're talking about accessories and things that you need, and it sparked a question of mine. Many years ago, up in Northampton, when I had my bicycle, it was strongly suggested that I register the bike with the police department, and you give them $5, and you put a sticker with a serial number on your bicycle. Are you aware of anything like that in this area?
Well, Ken, we've got something even better. So everyone that buys a bike, we are part of a website called the Bike Index. And our sales system is integrated with this company, and it's a free registration. Your bike is automatically registered nationally with its serial number through the Bike Index. The Bike Index will send you an email asking you if you want to update your information, add a picture of your bike, again, totally free. And if your bike is stolen, you can then go back to Bike Index and report it. And the bike shops within the area that are involved with Bike Index will get a notification, and if you had a picture of your bike and the serial number for that theft. So it's even better than a regular registration system. So for us, it's totally automatic for everyone.
So the bike shops would be looking out for it, because I would guess that they're looking to sell the bike, which tells me that some bike shops are still doing used bicycles. Do you get into used gear at all?
So we do trade-ins, and one of the things that we do with trade-ins is we do require an ID, a driver's license, and the other information on that bike, as well as just taking it in. Now, in regards to stolen bikes, usually a bike is stolen and then sold, and it's not the thief that generally is bringing it into a shop for service, but someone who bought the stolen goods, not knowing exactly where it came from, coming into a shop. So again, this method of registration is like the ideal. I mean, I can go online right now and pull up thefts from Northampton, Amherst, and as well as local.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about where people can ride. I mean, obviously we have the bike trail here, but you may get bored of just going out and back and doing the same thing every day. What are people's options for rides in the Pioneer Valley?
Well, I mean, you've got a lot of bike trails, existing. Ken mentioned the Norwottuck Trail up in Northampton, running from Look Park area all the way out to Belchertown. The linkage from Northampton down through East Hampton, which they call the Manhan Trail. You have, again, our local trail, which is uninterrupted really from Stop and Shop all the way down to Farmington, Connecticut, with a spur off that. The trails in the greater valley here are all being extended. Westfield already has submitted 25% design plans for the Levee Trail, or as we always, younger people called it, the Dike.
Yeah.
And
is that right?
Yeah, that trail will extend from around Ellsworth here, or Municipal Field area, all the way down to the pumping station at Mill Street or whatever that one is off of Meadow, linking the Chapman Recreation Field to the main bike trail, along with the Whitney Field and the Municipal Field.
So that's going to get paved, you're saying?
Yeah.
Because right now it's single track, just cinder.
Right, and part of it is overgrown where you really can't utilize it. So that is all in the plans to be expanded into a full-width, paved, multi-use trail.
Oh, that's fantastic news.
Yep. And there's also, talk and considerations now of how the Westfield Trail now will link to the Southampton line. And so don't know when that'll occur. That one's not in a design phase yet, so it could be many years off. But again, it's a thought and consideration. Yeah. Now, besides that, I mentioned, you take the typical bike trail bike, the hybrid, or even the gravel bike. All those bikes are great to ride on dirt and gravel roads. So you've got a fantastic network just outside of the valley, like out in Huntington and Chester, and up country in Williamsburg, and on up through Shelburne Falls and that.
Is that right?
Of dirt roads with no traffic. Now, granted, these are hilly rides. They're not flat like the bike trail. But you can go and ride these roads. They're scenic as can be. They're beautiful. Green River Road is a great example up in Greenfield. That runs up to the old restored Crib Dam and covered bridge just on the Vermont line.
Is that starts in Greenfield?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've heard of that.
Oh, it's a beautiful ride.
I never knew where that started, actually.
The East River Trail in Huntington to Chesterfield through the Chesterfield Gorge. It's a fantastic bike ride, and you don't need a mountain bike for it. You can do this on a kind of a mid-width tire. It's an old dirt road, gated off to traffic, so there's no cars in there.
And where does that start?
It starts behind the dam at Knightville. Yeah, and then it comes out at the Chesterfield Gorge. So it's about a 10-mile length run through along the river, which is one of the most gorgeous sections of the Westfield River you can imagine. You'll think you're out west somewhere.
So do you park up in the parking lot at the top of the
Well, generally
dam?
you'd park at one of the gates on Route 112 and enter from one of those gates.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, because it's on the west side of the river.
On the west side.
Yeah,
oh, I got
there
you.
is a mountain bike trail on the east side of the river where you'd park at the dam to access it.
Okay, I know where you're talking about now. Yeah, you see those when you're going up 112.
Yeah. So all these are great rides right here within the valley. Someone that owns a mountain bike, Robinson State Park, just a few miles up the road from Westfield, has dozens of miles of trails in there and loads of bike riders. The Westfield Reservoir here up in Montgomery, access to trails along the ridgeline at Toccoa Mountain. Just fantastic riding. Again, you need, for those, they're rugged and require a mountain bike.
Well, our time is coming to an end here, and I think we could talk for another couple of hours.
We go all afternoon, Harry.
But, you know, it's been fascinating, and what I love about this is you've really provided a true overview of everything that the cycling world is all about. And I just want to say to our listeners and to our viewers that cycling is a phenomenal sport to be a part of. It's great for fitness. It's a great way for families, friends to spend quality time together. Very scenic. It gets you outside, gives you an opportunity to get away from the stress of everyday life. And the thing that I've always loved about cycling is that you can take it with you. You can take it to the Cape. You can go to Vermont. You can go down to New Jersey. There's bike trails everywhere around the country now, and also wonderful cycling. The concept of gravel riding and dirt road riding has certainly been taking off. But it's a whole new opportunity for people to really take up, regardless of age. And we've certainly learned about the little ones getting started with bikes without wheels, but certainly people well into their older years that unfortunately I certainly belong to now, but it has been certainly my salvation over the years. But Don Podolsky, president of New Horizons Bikes, located here at 55 Franklin Street in Westfield, I want to thank you for having Kenny and I in here. You have been such a phenomenal advocate for cycling in our fair city. Forever. People know you for that. You've been a huge driver of the Columbia Greenway. Thank you for that personally. And we're going to look forward to that new completion. Hopefully next year that will be reopened, and that's going to be really exciting. So again, just tremendous. So for all of you that have been following us, thanks for tuning in today. You have been listening and watching Discover Westfield with Ken and Harry. On behalf of Ken Stomsky, my partner, the voice behind the camera, I'm Harry Rock. Have a wonderful day. Get on your bike and have a great time. Thanks.
Still not getting used to that.
No, I have to say you know, you're more into this stuff than I am, but this teletransporting, it's different for me.
You know, all of my atoms and nuclei getting scrambled up. You know, still something new. We just came back from New Horizons Bikes.
What an exciting visit that was. New Horizons Bikes, located on Franklin Street and been around for a long time. But what an opportunity for the community of Westfield to find something positive to do as a physical outlet and exercise, a way to just get yourself from home to downtown. But biking, how an exciting activity that is.
Now, you had a lot of your own personal questions about bicycles, the equipment and the sport. And the owner, president, Don, he did not let you down. He had an answer for everything.
Don Podolsky, who's the president of New Horizons Bikes. Yep, you know, when you're in that building with him, surrounded by bikes and all the components that go along with bikes, you can't help but get carried away and caught up in his enthusiasm and his passion for what that sport is all about. He lives it, he breathes it. He's a cyclist himself, been doing this basically his entire life. And you know, he just loves the opportunity, along with his daughter Mary, to still provide bicycles and all of the repairs and all of the parts and accessories that you might need to provide a phenomenal experience for anyone that's interested in cycling.
And he not only provides the equipment, but he can tell you where to go use that equipment and what type of equipment you need for wherever he tells you to go.
You know, Kenny, what was really interesting was the fact that you think that a bicycle is a bicycle, but like anything in life, it's all specialized now. And so you have certain bikes for the road, certain bikes for dirt paths, certain bikes for gravel roads. There's upright bikes, there's electric bikes now, so that even you could ride with me.
Training wheel less bikes for younger kids?
Yeah, children don't even learn with training wheels in. They have these little bikes without pedals on them where they just sit and they're basically balance bikes and they push themselves along with their feet. But what a phenomenal opportunity for Westfield. And we have this incredible bike trail that starts essentially at the Stop and Shop and goes south into Connecticut all the way down to New Haven.
And soon that's going to go right through our downtown.
By
elevated where you don't have to cross any roadways.
There's 5 bridges that they're working on right now. It's going to connect with the renovated railroad bridge, which you can go on today. And even on the berms of the dike along the Westfield River, you can ride your bike. That's just a cinder trail. And from what we learned from Donnie, the plans are down the road for that to get paved and be an extension as well. So Westfield's going to be well suited for cycling. And to your point, what makes our bike trail really unique, and even right now from Stop and Shop all the way out to Shaker Road, it's elevated because that was the original railroad trestle essentially that came along.
Exactly. They didn't want railroad traffic getting in the way of human and buggy and trolley traffic.
That's exactly right. And so when you're up high, you're looking down on Westfield, you're looking at roof level, and you can see the mountains, the Berkshires in the background. You're going by the tobacco fields behind Columbia. You see the back of the Public Works, DPW work site, and everything they're doing. It is really phenomenal. You're going across this really high bridge. It goes across the Little River, I believe it is.
Right.
Just absolutely beautiful. Even if you're not on a bike just for walking, running, that type of thing. But cycling, what we learned today is it's affordable, it's easy to get into, and we have very, very safe places for you to cycle.
And if you enjoyed this episode and you happen to own a business yourself and would like to be considered to be on a future episode of Discover Westfield, please go to www.westfieldtv.org and use the option to contact the admin and get a message out to us. We'll be in touch with seeing if we can put you on one of these episodes as well.
Sounds great, Kenny. You have been listening to another exciting episode of Discover Westfield with Ken and Harry.